Not quite sure how, but we made it. Last day of October. How you doing? It's 7:53 in the morning here in western Iowa. Let's jump into your forecast through the weekend, guaranteed. Is it a guarantee? Anyway, we should make it a guarantee here at the Weather Mic. Your forecast through the weekend, always. And we're going to start with yesterday's storm reports. And this is important for a couple important reasons. First of all, the good news is no tornadoes on yesterday's storm reports. And that's great because tornadoes can be destructive. The bad news is we had a forecast of a 10% chance of tornadoes, an enhanced risk of severe weather, and an hatched area for a possibility of large tornadoes. And that forecast was a complete bust. And the problem with a busted forecast like that is when you have severe weather is sometimes people go, yeah, well, it didn't happen last time. So people could let their guards down. We don't want that to happen. So we want these tornado forecasts to be accurate, but at the same time, we're happy when there are no tornadoes. There were a lot of wind reports, though. Some damaging wind all the way from near Childress, and that's right on the border of Texas, Oklahoma. But a line through Oklahoma, Kansas into Missouri, all those blue dots. And probably the worst was, and my understanding is the only tornado warning was actually in southern Iowa with a 90-mile-an-hour wind gust in Falls City and some damage there. A few hail reports sprinkled in here too with those green dots, but no tornadoes yesterday. And interesting, when we get to the severe graphics, we do have severe weather chances through Saturday in different places in the country, but the chance of tornadoes has been erased. so we'll see how that goes. All right, hazards for today. Yeah, it's cold. We have, let's start with the Pacific Northwest where a storm system is moving in, snow in the Cascades. So winter storm warning for the Oregon Cascades, transferring into a winter weather advisory, northern Oregon Cascades into Washington, and a little bit of fog there in parts of the Northwest. We also have winter weather advisory for the Sierra Nevada in California, and also some areas in Idaho and Montana. A little bit of fog in the Dakotas and also in Colorado. A lot of freeze warnings here: Colorado, Kansas, Texas, New Mexico, Utah, even parts of Nebraska. When you get up into Minnesota, Wisconsin, winter weather advisories, snowing there now. Wind advisories as you get into the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley and up there in New York State with some wind issues. All right, surface for today looks like this. Our cold front continues to march into the Midwest, trailing all the way down through Texas, scattered showers and storms ahead of that, even some rain for the Northeast, and yes, snow on the north side, northern Iowa into Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and again, some of that sticking there in Minnesota and northern Wisconsin. Also, snow for the Northwest and heavy snow possible, parts of Oregon into Idaho and a little bit of Washington. And that would be showery on the West Coast and also Northern California, some rain and snow and some rain along the coast. Severe weather chances today, there is a chance. Just a marginal risk from, say, southern Indiana through parts of western Kentucky, western Tennessee, Mississippi, eastern Arkansas, southeastern Missouri, northern Louisiana into northeast Texas. So that's your marginal risk of some severe weather, some severe storms. Otherwise, the light green is your general thunderstorms today. Again, no tornado risk listed by the Storm Prediction Center. Meanwhile, our anomalous temperatures today, you can see a large portion of the middle part of the country now below average today. That would include me here in Iowa, so we're not I think 50 is our expected high for Harlan, Iowa. A little warmer for Omaha, which is typical, but slightly below average for a change. A little bit more below average when you get into Wyoming. Ahead of the front, above average, and much above average when you get into the eastern Great Lakes, into the Northeast, even Ohio Valley, pretty warm compared to average. Those highs in the Northeast are in the 70s today. So very comfortable for the last day of October. Are you kidding me? Trick-or-treaters are going to enjoy that in that part of the country. We even still have 80s mid-Atlantic down into the Southeast, down into Florida, and even into East Texas. 70s, though, for a lot of Texas, even some 60s there in the Panhandle, 60s in the Central Plains, 50s and 40s as you head north. And the Northwest, kind of the cool spot here, but still, I'm expecting 50 here in Harlan, Iowa, and 51 for Portland, Oregon. So about the same. Cooler, though, of course, with elevation in the Rockies, 60s for Central California, 70s for the desert Southwest. Tomorrow morning, cold over much of the country with temperatures freezing or below over the Midwest, upper Midwest, northern plains, into the Rockies, into parts of the Northwest. And then temperatures starting out in the 60s, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, even Georgia, mid-Atlantic, and even further north into Virginia, 50s and 40s otherwise. Surface for tomorrow. Our cold front makes eastward progress, not much southern progress. And we're going to see more storms and showers, especially for Texas and New Mexico, are going to get soaked as we go through the first 2 weeks of November coming up on the GFS model. Just a lot of rain. And I think they need it, but they may get to the point where they don't. So we'll keep an eye on that. There's your chance of rain, snow in Dakotas into Minnesota, Wisconsin, UP of Michigan, perhaps another storm system, Pacific Northwest. Heavy snow, Oregon, Washington, Idaho could happen. All right, severe chances tomorrow. We're back into Texas and eastern New Mexico, a little bit of Oklahoma here, and it's just a marginal risk. And again, the Storm Prediction Center not predicting any tornadoes. They say less than a 2% risk for tornadoes in this area, but could see some severe storms here tomorrow. Your temperatures tomorrow warming up a little bit in the plains. Instead of slightly below average today, slightly above average tomorrow. The very warmest is still off in the Northeast, although that's getting pushed further east. So temperatures most of the country slightly above or slightly below average. It's only the East Coast where you see a little bit more above average. Those highs along the East Coast, still some 80s, Southeast, Mid-Atlantic, even an 80 there in Virginia, but transferring into the 70s and even 60s and 50s into the Northeast. 60s and 50s for the Ohio Valley, 50s and some 40s for the Great Lakes, upper Midwest, 50s here in Iowa, 60s Kansas, 70s Texas to low 80s. Low 80s for the desert Southwest of southern Arizona, but 60s Central California, 50s along the Oregon coast, 40s inland, and even some 30s in the Rockies. All right, 48-hour precipitation looks like this. And the heaviest rain now, Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, into Tennessee. And so we're talking 2 inches plus here for some areas. Now it's going to fall mostly as snow, and we'll show you that map next, but we do have another area, Minnesota, Wisconsin, UP of Michigan, with about 2 inches liquid equivalent of precipitation here. I think it'll fall as a snow or rain. And for the Pacific Northwest, the big winners along the Oregon coast, Northern California coast, into the Cascades, 2, 3, 4 inches of precipitation, liquid equivalent here. And where's that going to fall as snow in the Cascades? Well, yes, in the Cascades. Also parts of eastern Oregon getting snow into Idaho, and also Wyoming and Montana, a little bit of Nevada and California. Now for the Oregon and Washington Cascades, we're talking 2 feet plus for the highest elevations here. Maybe even 3 feet there in the central Oregon Cascades, so a lot. Meanwhile, for Minnesota into northern Wisconsin, as far as snow goes, maybe up to 8 inches for some. So that's a decent amount of snow coming down I'm dreaming of a white Halloween. they're gonna live the dream today. All right, for Saturday, as we get into the weekend forecast, the west very unsettled with rain and snow depending on elevation and location, especially behind that front. So pretty strong system for the northwest. And then here's your severe chance for West Texas and heavy rain too, intersecting that. And then also for North Texas into Arkansas, heavy rainfall, maybe into southern Kansas. And then scattered storms for much of the plains into the Midwest, Ohio Valley, Great Lakes. And severe Saturday, yeah, we have a chance. And this is a slight risk here for West Texas. The marginal risk goes all the way up into Kansas, eastern Colorado, and Oklahoma City is included in that. Big D's included in that in Texas. So watching out for severe weather on Saturday as well. Now, too far out here to predict tornadoes. So the Storm Prediction Center doesn't do the tornado prediction when you get 3 days out. So we'll have to keep an eye on this for a tornado chance, mainly into West Texas, extreme eastern New Mexico. We'll keep you posted, of course. Saturday's temperatures above average in the southeast, but the northeast now slightly below average, and temperatures really close to average otherwise, slightly above or slightly below on Saturday. And the highs on Saturday, pretty similar to what they are today and tomorrow. We might get to 60 for parts of Iowa, but mostly in the 50s. 60s though for Missouri and to Kansas, 70s Oklahoma, 70s and 80s Texas, 80s across the southeast, 70s for the mid-Atlantic, including Tennessee and Kentucky, and we're starting to see some 60s when you get into the Ohio Valley, 50s for the Northeast, a lot of 40s and 50s for the West, low 60s for Central California, and near 80 for Tucson and Phoenix. Sunday, like I said, guaranteed forecast through the weekend. Much below average temperatures would be Arizona, Utah, New Mexico, Colorado, the Four Corners states. Into the west, the highest above average would be the southeast, into Tennessee River Valley, into Kentucky, Ohio River Valley here, with teens above average. And those highs on Sunday reflect that. We have 80s for Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, East Texas, even into Tennessee. High 70s for Kentucky, but a quick drop off when you get into Ohio. We see 60s and 50s for northern Ohio, and a lot of 50s for the Northeast. Still chilly in the West. Again, really close to average, maybe a little bit below, and temperatures cooling off a little bit for Tucson. And let's take a look at our GFS, shall we? And we'll start with this morning. We got some snow coming down, parts of northern Iowa into Minnesota. And then our line of storms along the front right now in Illinois, Missouri, Arkansas, trailing into Texas. Our next system for the Northwest moving in. As we go through the day today, our low moves into the Great Lakes, spreading snow with that. And our trailing cold front moving across or just further to the east. And some snow spreading into the Oregon Cascades. All right, this gets us to this evening, midnight-ish right here, and then early tomorrow morning. We see that front stalling out on the south, moving still eastward here, spreading some cooler air into the northeast. Also the upper Midwest, our strong storm system moving in as we get into Oregon and Washington. I have to watch where I put the mouse or it makes this jump. All right, where did we leave off? Here we go. This is tomorrow. And we see that storm system moving in the Pacific Northwest. You see the showers moving back to the west here in Texas. So we've got an onshore flow, lots of moisture coming in off the Gulf, and rain eastern New Mexico into West Texas. This is Friday night, moving into Saturday. So a lot of rain, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Kansas are western storm spreading rain and snow. You can see the cold front moving through California. It's pretty well defined there. The heavy rains continue in West Texas into Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, spreading to the north into the Midwest. So now moving into Illinois, Indiana, this gets us into early morning Sunday. And that rain continues into the Great Lakes, eastern Iowa, into Missouri, Missouri, Illinois, Wisconsin, the Dakotas, into Minnesota, rain. Snow, though, coming down into the Four Corners, the higher elevations. Again, this is Sunday afternoon now, and we get into Sunday night, heavy rain, Oklahoma, parts of Texas. Moving into Missouri, oh my goodness, that's a lot of rain. Into Missouri and Illinois as we get into Monday morning. Snow in the Rockies, and another system with heavy rain all the way from Iowa into Kansas, Oklahoma. So it's just rounds of rain for parts of the plains into the Midwest, into the Great Lakes as we go through the beginning of November. And snow back in the west and northwest. So, wax those skis. Ski areas are making snow if they're not getting natural snow. Now, this is interesting. Our hurricane's back in the Gulf. Look at this. We got a hurricane back in the Gulf on the 6th of November. So, after many runs of it disappearing, it's back now. Does that mean we'll have a hurricane coming around the 7th of November, heading towards maybe the panhandle of Florida? No, not necessarily. Is it worth watching? Yes, we'll watch it. All right. And we see another system moving into the Four Corners. More rain for Texas and Oklahoma and Missouri and Arkansas. And if we have a hurricane, heavy rain for the southeast too. Kind of makes sense. Now this run is interesting. It just the hurricane just kind of dies off the coast. So I don't know. If we're too far out, but I just want to show you the trends that we talked about yesterday too, which is storms diving into the Four Corners, ejecting into the plains in the Midwest, one after the other, after the other, after the other, for the first half of November. And that is the pattern that is being shown still today by the GFS. Will we get tons of rain in western Iowa on Saturday the 9th? Yeah, maybe. We might. We'll certainly watch that. And that's a pretty cranked up low here, but not enough cold air for a Midwest storm yet. So, or a snowstorm, I should say. So I'm looking forward to that. I think most of my neighbors are not, but we'll see what happens. Another strong storm for the Pacific Northwest on the 12th. Where does that go? It moves into the Rockies, and then we see tons of rain for West Texas and New Mexico, and then eventually that will probably eject into the plains, but it's beyond our model run of the GFS. All right, enough rambling about the possible future. Let's talk about our 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, and it's much below average for Arizona and the desert Southwest, and generally below average for the Southwest into the West, and much above average, or at least the highest chance of above average would be the East Coast. Precipitation wise, that bullseye over West Texas and New Mexico into southern Colorado. So the land of enchantment could get a good soaking, and much of the middle part of the country and the southeast and the Ohio Valley. Lots of a good chance of above average precipitation, dry west coast as we get into the 5th through the 9th of November. So there it is, your guarantee forecast through the weekend and beyond. Thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate you. We'll see you tomorrow right here on the Weather Mic.